Yeah. When I was 16 years old, I was in Air Cadets, as I mentioned, and I won a flying scholarship from 170 St. James Squadron in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And when I was training, I was actually too young to get a radio operator's license, but I could get a pilot's license at 16. I think you had to be 17 then to get a radio operator's license. I was flying on my second solo flight. I took off in an Aeronca Champion. KBR was the call letters. And as I took off, there was something strange about the flying pattern of this aircraft, and as I got onto what was my downwind leg in my circuit, I saw an aircraft from the RCAF come up alongside, very close, too close actually, and bank off to the left. And I wondered why this was happening, and then soon I heard my call letters from the control tower calling me KBR. And they said, "We'd like you to fly by the control tower to look at your landing gear because we think one of your wheels may have fallen off." Well, that's when I looked down over my left and I started flying towards the control tower, and I looked down, and there sure enough was the wheel that's supposed to be pointed that way was turned and pointed this way, and the cluster gear underneath the center of the fuselage had broken and was falling down, but the oleo, which is a shock absorber with oil in it, was holding the wheel on, and that was all. So at that point I'm flying, looking over my left side down at the wheel, and I forgot to look at the control tower, and I'd lost so much altitude. The control tower, which was about 250 feet high, I was almost flying straight into it. So at that point I got a little scared and went way up, quite a bit higher, and they sent me over the south practice area, which was southwest of Winnipeg. I flew around there for an hour. I flew over Charleswood, where I lived, and I flew over my family's home, where I saw my mother and my sister and my brother and my other sister out in the garden, and I thought, well, that's interesting. They don't know what's going on, and I'm up here and they're down there. And then I flew over a girlfriend's house and saw her sunbathing in the backyard, and then I went down to the south practice area and flew around there for an hour, and then they called me back to the airport, which they had closed down. With the runway lights on, that means no one can land, and they closed it down because they wanted me to land on a grass strip, which was then at the north side of the field, north end of which would be runway, I guess, 18 going south. Just at the end of that was a grass strip. So Mr. Hoffman, Leo Hoffman, who was the chief flying instructor, called me, and on the radio told me that there were two crash trucks, a Department of Transport truck and an ambulance, all lined up on the left side of the grass strip. Well, I got no left wheel. Which side am I going to turn to once I hit the dirt? Well, obviously I'm going to ground loop to the left. And even I could figure that out, a 16-year-old cadet. So I came down and I was approaching this grass strip, and Leo Hoffman told me over the radio, You're way too high, overshoot, abort this landing. And I took off again, and I didn't have too much power, but I got up just over the top of one of those white oil tanks that were on the Air Force side. That was the west side of the field. They were burning some oil, and I flew through that. And I went up to 4,000 feet and came around the second time. And as I'm on my downwind leg, Leo Hoffman on the radio said, "We're not going to tell you what to do. You just do it your way. You'll be fine." He did not give me any further instructions. And as I came down, I felt like I was the ultimate fighter pilot. And I remember, this is all on film that I have, and I have a copy of this film. I brought the aircraft down at twice the normal landing speed. At that time, that would be 80 miles an hour. The landing speed, the stall speed was 42 miles an hour, as I recall, on an Aeronca Champion. So I came down over the grass strip, and I bounced it down just once so that I bent the undercarriage backwards to an obtuse angle rather than an acute angle towards the ground, because otherwise that oleo might have gone through the cockpit or done a ground loop or spin or gone out of control end over end. I don't know what it would have done, but I bounced it enough to bend it backwards. I went down to the end of the grass strip, did a gentle 180-degree ground loop to the left, and got out and kicked the tire. But just before I got out, I remember thinking, if I shut off the magneto, the propeller will stop, but if I leave it going, I might be able to get this propeller because it'll hit the dirt. Well, sure enough, it hit the dirt, and if you can see over here, take a good look at this. This is the propeller that was on that Aeronca Champion that day, and it just has a little bit of the end of the propeller cut off. You can see it's a Sensenich wooden prop, and my father, as a gift to me, put a clock in it, and there it is. And that's the story of my little experience when I was 16 years old on my second solo flight in Winnipeg. Those were interesting times. I had to walk from Charleswood up to the flying club in Winnipeg before 7 o'clock, and got up sometimes 4 in the morning to walk that distance. But I was always proud of the fact that I could do it, and it's amazing what you can do when you're young. You think you're invincible, and sometimes if you believe it, maybe you are. But for everyone who in youth wants to try to do difficult things, it'll give you something to cherish for the rest of your life. Do what you can do, and be absolutely confident that, as I felt that day, either God or somebody was flying with me, and you're never alone. You're never going to fail as long as you have faith in yourself and in what you know and have been taught, and what maybe God will teach you when you need to know. I think that it was an experience I'll never forget, and it was one of those things that teaches me never lose hope, never lose faith, because somebody, whether you believe as I do that God is always with you, or somebody's always there to protect you. You've got a guardian angel, and somebody loves you, and you're going to make it just fine. Don't ever forget that.